Well, that twin stick thing was a little exhausting, I gotta tell you. But it's in, it's all hooked up, it works. The tub is sitting back on the frame where it needs to go, not bolted down. It's not gonna be bolted down for a while. But I think I'm at the point now where I can get up there in the engine compartment on the firewall and really plan out the placement of all of my stuff. So just to recap what I got to put up there, I've got this little breather from ARB, the manifold thing for my breathers for my front and rear differentials and my transmission. I've got the electrical system that goes with the fuel injection. I think there's like a module that has to mount up there that connects to that tablet that we got that will program the thing. I've got the fuel pressure regulator and a fuel filter that I want to be able to get to so I can change it out if it gets dirty. And then of course the main wiring harness coming out of the fuse panel. So I may have to go out there in the Jeep graveyard and dig up the rest of my original wiring harness. But I might not have to get under the Jeep this week. So let's see how that goes. Now that I've made that prediction, I'm sure something will go sideways and I'll have to get under there. But hopefully we'll be able to spend some time in that engine compartment, get that all laid out and get us one step closer to getting fenders, radiator, and grille put back in place. Okay, here we got it. Front drive shaft with a couple of coats of our Krylon gloss black covering up our greenish self-etching primer that we stuck on there. I gotta let this dry a little bit longer and then flip it over, and the other kind of half needs one more little coat. While that's drying though, I'm gonna take the tape and I'm gonna do a little preliminary measurements for mufflers, because as I start to get the tub all situated, I'm gonna need to order up some mufflers. And just looking at it, boy, from where those headers dump out to the rear tire, there's just not very much room. So I don't know how much room there is, which is why I'm gonna go measure it out. I'll kind of get myself some working parameters to work with, and then I'll head back upstairs and get on, I've been looking on Summit Racing's website, and they got a pretty good selection. You can do glass packs or some chambered mufflers, or whatever. Again, it'll just be kind of whatever we can fit in there, and my guess is it won't be all that quiet. So, darn. Anyway, I'm going to check that out and I'll get back to you and let you know what I found as far as my working size goes. And ultimately, when I pick out what I'm going to buy, I'll tell you what I'm ordering up. All right, well, we're down here under the Jeep looking at exhaust. And this is the collector adapter that you're going to slip your muffler into over. The outside input side of the muffler is going to slide over this and be welded on there or clamped on there. So this is the one that I have free in my hand just so I can measure it. And when I measure the inside diameter of this guy, we get about 2 3/8 inches. When we measure the outside, we get about 2.5 inches. So I'm going to call it that for my working, 2.5 and 2 3/8 inner. I don't think I'm going to need much more detail than that. I have this one just taped up there with some blue tape so that I can get my distance down from where this collector ends up back to the tire to see how much working space we have there. Now I've really only got 28 inches before we're into the tire. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call it 24 inches maximum, which means we'll be dumping, the tip of our exhaust is going to be dumping out right about here. And if I do that, that really leaves me, like 16 to 18 inches for the muffler length before I start into that bend for my tip if I'm to get the thing out here. So 16 to 18 inches is our working length for our muffler. We are not going to be able to do a chambered muffler in here because we don't have enough room before we bump into this frame body mount right here. So we're just going to do a short glass pack, put a bend on the end, shoot it out here. I'll go upstairs and hunt around a little bit See if I can find something that fits those measurements, and once I do, I'll let you know what we zero in on. All right, well, it's been a minute since we've done a parts haul. This one isn't going to be too big of a deal, but I did get mufflers in and exhaust tips from Summit Racing. So let's bust this box open and see what we got here, shall we? All right, bubbles all out of the way. What we got was a couple of exhaust tips, that's what these are, get us turned a corner there, and a couple of mufflers. Now, they did mention something about them coming in different packaging or something, but what we got is a Magnaflow, basically a 4-inch glass pack, really. So the muffler was going to have to be short. We knew that. Tip here. Let's open up the tip and see what they look like. So this is just put a little bend on it and get us pointed out the side here. So basically, might have to put a little squeeze on those and get them inside there. I think we're out over the outside. We'll have to figure that out. But anyway, so there's my tip, and that's going to go. This end is going to go in there. That's going to go there. Okay, so really rough. There's our collector adapter pushed inside there. It's going to go about there. Our tip is going to go about here. It's going to work out okay. Even if we come right to here, which we're going to cut a little shorter than that for sure. But that'll put us right near the end of the tub here. That's going to look all right. And it's going to clear just fine. Figure out some way to put a hanger or two on there so they're not just hanging off the headers. There we go. All right, well, I did remember that I promised you I was going to give you part numbers or kind of a better description of what I bought. So let's do that just real quick here. So the mufflers themselves are from Magnaflow. So there's our Magnaflow muffler. And it is a 14-inch by 4 by 4, it says. 2.5 times 2. So both the input and the output, or front and back, or however you want to call it, are 2.5 inches, I believe, outside diameter. And the part number for that is MPE 10416. I'll put that in the description or something in case you really want it, if you want this exact same thing. And then the tip is a AFE Power Mach Force XP exhaust tip. Polished bolt-on, 2.5 inch input, 2.5 inch output. So there's my problem. Both my tip and my muffler are 2.5 inches, so I'll have to sort that out. But this is part number SS304. And again, that's just it's called a Mach MACH Force XP exhaust tip, not a big deal. If you want the prices, the mufflers were 95 bucks a piece. Those are, again, I think I mentioned it, those are stainless steel, and they're like the 406 stainless steel, so the really hardcore stuff. And these were $49 a piece for the tips. So, and the tip came with one clamp, big clamp here. So again, that's, I think, intended for this to go actually inside of our other end. So maybe when I press these together a little bit, I'll be able to get it inside of there and clamp her down or whatever. We'll have to see, but we'll put this up on the bench, because what I think I'll do is I'm going to practice up my welding a little bit. And I will weld my collector tip to the muffler first, make sure I got that all done, and then we'll figure out what to do about this. This is chrome, so we don't want to weld that if we can avoid it. But the other one is just raw metal, it's like. So there's the parts we got. Now, I also want to mention that the fuel injection system, I believe, has an oxygen sensor that needs to be somewhere. And my thought process is what you're going to do is you're going to drill a hole through here the size of that oxygen sensor, and you're going to weld the bung, or the kind of, in essence, a nut onto there. That's the threaded thing that thing drops into. So as we work this over, I'll take care of that as well. Get that bung on there, and then obviously this is your collector, you bolt to your collector. So a little bit of work for these to do on the bench, but I'm not going to get those on the bench tonight. So, but I am going to revisit the instructions for the fuel injection now, because now, part of it is going to tie into there with that oxygen sensor, and the rest of what I'm going to work on, as I've already said, is that firewall. So there we go, part numbers for you, and the next steps will probably see me back on the bench doing a little welding, but I might do a little practicing first, because these got to be welded up nice and neat and want to make them look good. Okay, here we are. I think I mentioned that I lost one of the caps. Well, I didn't lose it, but I knocked it off and knocked all the needle bearings out. So one of the things we're going to work on today is I've got some new U-joints ready to be picked up over at Napa. I'm going to pick those up. I'm going to get these out of here. I will use my ball joint press, I think, to try these. I've never really done that before. So we'll see how that goes. And then we'll get the new ones put in. And I've got enough to do this and the rear differential, or the rear drive shaft. So that's kind of the order of the business for right now, is the U-joint replacement. Now, I have been listening lately to watching a guy on YouTube, Doug, I'm going to butcher his last name, Helvering, I think. I'm going to put a link down in the column below, or in the comments below, but he's a classical music guy, like composer or PhD in classical music. And what he does is he goes back and listens to and reacts to music he's never heard before. And he's been kind of doing a lot of Pink Floyd stuff lately, so I'm a big Pink Floyd guy. But what's really cool about what he's doing is, because it's his very first experience with this music, and he's done some Pink Floyd, he's done some Rush, my favorite bands. It kind of has got me back on this kick where I'm listening to a lot of Pink Floyd and Rush lately, and I guess I kind of like, you rediscover this when you see someone else going through the discovery of it for their very first time. It's really cool, it's entertaining, and so I'm not going to talk while I work, because I've got a big playlist all queued up here with a bunch of Pink Floyd stuff in there. And of course, if that's recorded, then I can't put this on YouTube, or the copyright police will kick down my door and drag me kicking and screaming off to the gulag somewhere. So I'm going to shut up. I'm going to turn the music on. You're just going to have to watch. That's all you get to do. But I'm going to take these U-joints out, and then we're going to hop in the truck and run down to Napa and get the new ones, put them in. There we go. That's the plan. Okay, well, these retaining clips do come out pretty easy if your drive shaft's not old and rusted and they're not like seized in there. But I still recommend you wear eye protection when you're doing this, because they are springs after all, and they can come shooting out of there. But then once you've got them out, if you do have a ball joint press, you can just go ahead and press your U-joints out with that. Now, I've seen guys put their ball joint press in here and put an impact wrench on it. I didn't have anywhere near that much force required to take these out. I was able to just take the press itself and the frame without any of my ends or whatever, and just put a crescent wrench on the end and held onto the kind of the clamp part and spun them right out. So I mean, they're a little hard, but they're not that hard, and I suppose you could do it with an impact wrench if you really wanted to get them out of there in a hurry. But again, if your drive shafts aren't all, you know, old and really nasty and rusted up and everything's seized up in there, then I think you'll find you can just push these things through just like I did. And just push them all the way through, and then I had enough room to kind of tip the U-joint over and pop the cap out that I just pushed out from the top end, and then the whole U-joint comes out. So I'll let you watch me doing that, but again, the ball joint press works pretty good for this job, for taking them out and putting them back in. Okay, so I have unboxed my new U-joint. I have it sitting here against my old U-joint. One of the things that I'll point out, which is obvious, but point it out anyway, is you do get a new set of those retaining clips, so you don't have to worry about the old ones. And then what you want to do is lay your new one and your old one on top of each other, and with your fingers you're basically feeling the length to make sure they're the right length. And then you're going to also take an end cap and do the same thing stack them up or hold them together and run your finger up and down the caps and make sure they're the same diameter. Trust me, you will feel the difference if they're not. And then last kind of thing I'll point out, which again might be super obvious to everybody, but maybe there'll be one person out there who hadn't thought of this, and I'll save you a little grief at the end. I'm going to point out the grease zert here. It's on kind of one side of this U-joint. And if we look at it from the other side, you see we're not going to get to it from here. So what I always like to do is I always like to make sure that I orient my grease zert closest to the drive shaft side of this thing, such that when I put it in there, I'm not kind of working around the yoke. And because the yoke is going to be up against either your differential or your transmission or your transfer case or whatever. And when you're trying to get a grease gun on there, it's going to be a little bit tougher to get to. So you just want to make sure that as you put that in, again, you orient that on the side that your drive shaft is coming off of. Now, I dinged up the drive shaft a little bit when I had it in the vise when I was knocking the old one out. I've got paint trying to dry up here, so I can't really do this right now. So maybe what I'll do is leave this right here. When I was down at Napa, I also picked up a couple of little 2 1/4 inch adapters, which should slide inside of my muffler and my tip, and then I can kind of weld this to the muffler and clamp the tip down around that. Hopefully those will work. Those were pretty cheap, so I just grabbed them. I saw them on the shelf while I was there, and I was like, oh, I need those. U-joints, speaking of money wise, are about, I don't know, $14, $15 per U-joint, and this particular one that I got is a Napa part number P369, made in China, our favorite country. And anyway, you know, I just looked them up online, and you plug in your 77 CJ5 and it goes, these should work, and they will. Now, the way you're going to put these in, you're going to basically pull a cap off this end and pull a cap off that end, place it through your yoke, and then press these back in. And I generally can press them in okay with a vise, and then the last little bit you kind of tap in, you put a socket there and tap it in with your rubber mallet to get it far enough in to put your clip on the end. So you do see, as I was cleaning up my drive shafts, I cleaned out that groove that these clips go in. Just scraped it out with a screwdriver. You do want to do that. Make sure everything's nice and clean as you're putting these back together. So when next we share time together, I'll be putting these in my drive shafts and having a look to see how this is going to work for our exhaust system. And then I will be starting to work on getting serious about planning out that firewall and working on the engine a bit. I did discover when I went back and looked through an older video that where I thought that one bracket goes on the engine isn't where it goes. The power steering pump has its own bracket, so I need to go find that out in the Jeep graveyard out there, bring it in and start getting that cleaned up. So I got some more of that yucky part cleaning work to do, and I'll probably do my little pivot rod for my clutch at the same time, because once I get the tub in place for good, I'll need to check the fitment of that rotating thing that your pedal turns, you know, that pushes on the clutch. It'll make sense when I show it to you. So for now, we'll wrap this up. We'll come back around next time around when paint's dry. We can start getting these in, and we'll work on our exhaust system a little bit and our engine.